Welcome to another new episode of Tony the Movie Guy, the podcast. This week we have a really special guest, Jim Meskimen. He's an actor and an impressionist and an amazingly nice guy. We were just so excited to have him on the podcast. He is so entertaining. He has tons of projects going on, so please keep an eye out for him. Go look at his past stuff. It is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and play it because I just want to listen to it all over again. Okay, guys, have fun.
Tony.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Tony the Movie Guy and...
Yenny. Oh, Money Yenny. That's right.
Miss Money Yenny.
I can't remember it for the life of me, Tony. I don't know what to say.
You need to drill it.
I know.
All right. We're really excited because we've got a very special guest with us today. It's Mr. Jim Meskimen.
Hello.
All right. And Jim Meskimen, I mean, you've been working for about, 25 years?
Longer.
Professionally.
Longer. Yeah.
I mean, obviously...
Since 1984.
Since
so
1984?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pro actor since 1984.
Yeah, so you act, you're a comedian, you do stand-up and impressions.
Well, I don't do so much stand-up. I do impressions and I do an act, live show, but I don't I didn't do the comedy club thing. I didn't like the lifestyle that I saw, and my background is theater, improv theater, and regular old theater, and so I don't like to be doing my thing and have waiters saying, you have to pay for that now, and clinking glasses and dropping trays and stuff. So I'm sort of spoiled. I like the theater. So
that's fantastic.
But yeah, I do a lot of different things. I feel like you have to. In my case, you have to. I don't, shine so brightly in any one area, so I need to kind of keep a lot of fires going all over the place.
Well, we're all fans, and we think you're incredibly talented.
I've seen Jimpressions. It's really awesome.
Oh, have you? Oh.
I loved it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've actually followed you, just sincerely as a fan for over 20 years.
Wow.
You used to go to England with a bunch of guys. Bodie Elfman, I remember, was one of them. Another guy called Tate Rupert. And you would do these live readings of books. I was a kid. I loved them. I remember you from them. I remember you from Apollo 13. I just always remember your scene in that, that film.
Wow,
and
this is very friendly.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I really do. And then you've been on
I can't believe we haven't met before this.
I know. Actually, I have met you.
No.
I've met you in
well, there
England.
you go. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
It was a long time ago. And you've done acting, but you've done acting in some of the biggest TV shows in the world.
That's
Big
true.
Bang Theory, 2.5 Men, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Friends.
Yeah, you were
a
on
show
Friends
called
too.
Friends, yeah.
See, I missed that one.
Which episode?
Right, and this isn't me, Jim. This isn't me just Googling it. I've watched those shows.
Yeah.
I remember you in them.
Yeah.
I remember him in Big Bang Theory.
Absolutely. It's the Minister of the
That's
Wedding.
right.
That's
Yeah,
Jim
married them.
Meskimen.
Yeah,
One of my
that's right.
favorite shows.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when you show up everywhere. You're very productive.
Thank
So
you.
it's
Well,
awesome.
I don't stop. I mean, I had my mother as an example, Marion Ross, who played Mrs. Cunningham on Happy Days.
Perfect segue. That was going to be my first question.
Yeah, so I learned a lot from her, and that was my exposure to Hollywood, was through, being her son and seeing what she went through. And my mother hustled a lot. She really worked hard. She had 2 kids. She was a single parent.
Oh, wow.
From the time I was 8. So I have a younger sister who's 5, who's also in show business.
Great. What does she do, by the way?
She's she's a writer-producer.
Awesome.
A very successful one.
Fantastic.
But anyway, so I watched my mother, and she was. I don't know. Are you a parent? Do you have kids?
No.
Okay. So
We've been married for 2 years.
Not
Oh,
yet.
okay.
Our anniversary is today.
All right. Well, sooner or later, then you may have this wonderful experience of having a child. But
We look
but it's
forward to
very
it.
demanding. My wife and I, Tamara, we had a child in 1990, who's now 27, and
Wow.
we came out here when she was from New York. We came out when she was about 3. And, driving around, having a career, raising a child, it's tough for 2 people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the longer I was a parent with a kid, the more I realized, oh my God, how did my mother do this?
So you juggle a lot of balls in there.
Yeah, and like I said, I guess my only point is that I observed what she did, and so I learned that you don't wait around for something to happen. You get very proactive, and now the whole planet's learning that now. But I was lucky enough to learn that at an early age that, hey, and the benefits of it, it's not just drudgery. It's actually kind of fun. It's very liberating to go, you know what? I am going to generate some work for myself.
If you
somehow.
want something, reach
I'm
for
going to create. Yeah, I'm going to create a show. I'm going to create a video. I'm going to create something, and I don't know where it's going to come from, but something will drop in, and I'll get paid.
I love that. That's fantastic. Well, I was going to ask you about Marianne Ross because, I mean, I watched Happy Days as a kid. I did. I remember that show. Yeah. And it ran for like 10 seasons. It was like the biggest show in the world. Was it 11 seasons? 11 seasons, yeah. And she played Marianne, the mother,
that's right,
on the show. Do you have any like little tidbits or little stories or anecdotes of like being on the set or something like that? I'd love to hear something.
Okay. Well, yeah. And Marianne, I should say, her book is coming out about her life next spring.
Oh, perfect. What's it called?
It's called My Life. No, sorry. It's so new, I've forgotten. It's My Days, Happy and Otherwise,
so
by
this is
Marianne
half
Ross.
The press.
That's awesome. That's
and I've just been reading rereading the manuscript, so it's all fresh in my mind. And somebody interviewed me just the other day about the Thanksgiving show, and they were like, "Did you see the Thanksgiving show? I want to talk to you about that." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" I went online, I went on YouTube, and I found the Thanksgiving show, and I watched. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember this." And now when I look at my mother just turned 89, like 2 weeks ago, and we all went down and celebrated with her. And I look at her now, I look at her on Happy Days, and she's probably 45, 50 years old. And I'm like, oh my God, she's younger than me.
Right.
And it's super cute. And she also reminds me a lot of my daughter, just genetically, and they have a very similar kind of playful spirit. So, and it's funny too, because my daughter Taylor's a redhead. My mother was not. She's a brunette, but when she became Marion Cunningham, Ron Howard's mother, they dyed her hair.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so that's a tidbit.
Because he's a redhead, right?
Because he's a redhead, and so they didn't dye his hair; they dyed her hair.
That's so cool.
Because he was kind of the star.
That's fantastic.
Definitely. So yeah, but Mom was, this busy, struggling. I would say, intent and never worried, and always. I mean, there wasn't anything she was going to do other than be an actress.
Right. She loved it, right?
She burned every bridge. I mean, there was no way, and she loved it, and she had success since from a very early age, and she was just focused.
Right.
So when we were growing up, we just had periods where we just didn't have too much money.
Right.
And I don't know how she pulled us through, but she would get a commercial, and we'd go, we'd breathe a sigh of relief, and she would work, and so. But when Happy Days happened, it was a very slow growth. And I remember going to the set when I was probably 13. I remember going with my friend Danny Sternfeld. We went and visited her at Paramount. And that was when it was just a single camera show within the first 2 seasons or whatever. Before they did it in front of a live audience, they shot it like a movie or a standard show. Mm-hmm. And I remember, the kind of disappointing boredom of it all. When you go to a film,
you, Jim?
13 maybe.
Oh wow!
And you go to a film set, and your reality on film is this exciting world. Things happen, things explode, people chase each other. There, people in exotic clothes and guns firing, and you get to a set, and it's like the biggest waiting room in the world.
So true.
Right.
And if something happens, you can't hear it anyway.
Right.
Because it's so far away, and you have to be quiet, and so it's so disappointing in a lot of ways. You're like, who would want to do this? Who would want to do this job? And you do have to kind of suss that out, figure that out eventually. Do I really want to be in this environment? Because there's a hell of a lot of waiting. But anyway, I remember being on that set and waiting and looking and being quiet and having you don't want to break anything or touch anything, and seeing, hey, look at this is fake. Hey, look, this fireplace is fake, and these things are fake. And meeting Tom Bosley, and I met Henry Winkler and Ron.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I was obsessed with the Fonz as a kid.
Yeah, you weren't the only one. Everybody
so you met the
was.
Fonz.
Yeah, and Henry was, I think when I met Henry, I seem to remember that he was an old man of 22.
Wow.
I was like, like I said, 13 14 years old. And I met him, and he was very nice. And this is back when you could smoke in a soundstage.
Right.
And he was smoking.
Everywhere, 20, 30
smoke
years
anywhere.
Ago. It's crazy.
He's smoking, and I have the balls to say, well, that's not very admirable.
About smoking?
Wow.
Did you say that as a 13-year-old boy?
Probably the second thing I said to him.
That's great.
In my life. And he was like, you're right. It's not. You're right. That's a good point. He was very congenial. He was always a very friendly and diplomatic person, and very kind to me, and always is kind over the many years. And I met Ron and Donnie and Anson, Potsy and Ralph. These characters, they were young guys. And I remember Donnie Most was like, he was just very excited. He was asking me a lot of questions. Where do you go to school? How come you're not in school today? He was just very interested, but they were like 19 years old.
That's crazy.
And then it just sort of built up, and became, again, a telling of the period. Television shows, weren't yanked quite so fast if they weren't if they didn't find their audience.
Now it's so fast.
So fast. I mean, you can have a series and you do a season of the series, everybody binge watches, and then they pull the plug on it. And you're like, okay, that was fast. And Happy Days was allowed to kind of ferment, I guess, or whatever, grow over a couple of years and plod along and slow. And then it became a real phenomenon. And then it was like the biggest show on TV, and that was exciting. Of course, it was also weird for me because my only experience with my mother being on the television show was that, it becomes a big hit and everybody knows who they are. And then as opportunities come, and so I had a kind of a skewed, weird, warped view of what is this game,
Right.
And I had my own feelings of wanting to be an actor, but not knowing how to trust that or not.
Right.
Because I like to perform, but I also was suspicious a little bit, and that was other people's viewpoints entirely.
So how did you start then as acting?
It took me a long time. I had to kind of, sort out a lot of stuff personally.
Okay.
And I don't know how much you want to talk about that. But,
hey, whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
that's the great thing about the podcast. It's casual. You can say anything you want. This is all about you, my friend.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're here at Celebrity Center, and I used Scientology to sort out my difficulties.
That's great.
And I had, a lot of confusion about fame and about art and about what it means to be a performer. And I was able to sort those things out for myself before I even really put myself on the market, which is good.
So that helped you really do acting?
Totally, yeah, because it helped me to figure out really what I was trying to do. I'm kind of like, maybe like a lot of people, I like to know where I'm going before I leave. I'm like electricity. I like to complete the circuit before I actually leave the house. So, once I had that sorted out, then I went, okay, well, I must go to New York. I was living in Spain at the time, and I decided to go to New York because in L.A. I conceived, and this was actually pretty correct, that I would have a harder time getting started here in L.A.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah, because of the physical limitations of Los Angeles. In other words, there's too much space, there's too much time.
Right.
In New York, there's no space, there's no time. Everybody's late. You don't have any time to do anything.
It's crazy.
And everything's crammed. And like, here, look at this beautiful apartment. Wow, it's 4 feet wide.
I love New York. True. I would never live there.
Yeah, no, it turned out to be a good place to go to get started in a career in the arts. And I would meet people on the street, and I would have all kinds of adventures. And that is how I was able to really build a very nice career. Doing commercials, all the advertising is there, and I would.
That's right. See, I see you in commercials as well.
Yeah, I used to have a very big commercial career. It's how I really, really got started, and how I, was able to, buy my own place and support my family and so forth.
That's great, Jim.
Less so now. Commercials now, it's a whole different market. Even people that work a lot don't make the kind of money they used to. Celebrities make, of course, a lot of money, which is great, and I can't wait to join their ranks officially.
You're gonna get there. You just keep working.
I'm just gonna keep working, keep my eye on the ball. I know I can do it.
So let me ask you about some of the, because as I said, you had like guest spots on some of the best TV
big shows. Yeah,
Big Bang Theory, several others, I think. Can you tell me about any of those experiences? Some that were really
Big
fun
Bang
for you?
Theory. Yeah, Big Bang Theory. I'd actually I'd done a voiceover for them before, so it was like my second job for them. And I remember, this is a typical story. Typical Hollywood story, right? I get this audition and I look at it and it's like The Minister, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like 3 lines, 1 joke. I'm like, I know how this is going to go. Because when you work on a sitcom, they give you a part, you get the part.
Right.
And it's like 2 pages, and you got a funny line, and it's with the stars. And by the time the week is over, your funny line is gone. Your part is dwindled down to the barest minimum. And it's like, and then you wait to do that. And it's sort of soul-sucking after a while.
Right.
Because you're
I
like,
can understand
the reason I wanted this job is now gone.
Right.
And now I'm just I'm just a hired gun and I'm doing it for the paycheck. So I'm sitting there in the room with all the other. I look in the room there. Everybody's auditioning for the minister and for another role. And I look at these tired old actors. I'm like, here I am in a room full of tired old actors reading for this part that will be half of this. And I had such terrible attitude.
Right.
Just like. And then I knew I'm going to get this role.
Right.
Because I have such a bad attitude. And I'm not making any attempt to hide it. Oh. And I'm just being a total asshole about it. And and of course they called and they said, yeah, we definitely want to hire you.
You just withdrew from it.
I withdrew from it completely. I have no interest, which is a great way to audition. Yeah. I have no interest in this
And then
part.
You got it.
And then they called and they immediately hired me. And I went, oh, God. But to my pleasant surprise, the part, I kept the funny line. It actually got a little bigger on the day.
Right.
And I was like, what's happening here? And also, it turned out to be the season premiere of the show.
Right.
I remember it.
Yeah.
So it had all this attention behind it.
Yeah.
So then it was like, oh, no, I'm really glad I did this.
Right.
So it turned out to be, even though my jaded kind of, negative attitude was completely inappropriate, but hey, it got me the job. So.
Oh, it was awesome.
And the people were really nice, too.
Right.
They were very nice, as it is often the case with a really successful show.
Right.
Like on Friends, this was the case, too. The stars and everybody, man, they're very confident. They've got a great show. It's been going a long time.
Right.
It's a breeze for them. It's the easiest thing they do in their day is this show.
Which season did you have a guest spot on?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
5, 6, I don't know.
Like, we just rewatched the entirety of Friends. Like, that is a show
season
stands
Friends?
the test of time.
Friends, it was
Friends.
their last year.
Oh,
so
it was like
maybe
the
10th year,
yeah.
10th season. Yeah, well towards the end.
Love that
I just
show.
got in under the wire. And by that time, it was the easiest thing. Like I said, it's the easiest thing those people do.
Right.
The rest of their life is probably very tough in comparison.
Right.
But for them, they walk in, everything's designed for them. They're making $1 million an episode.
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
Everything, God is great. Everything's fantastic. And the show goes like a breeze, you know, and you're like, it's almost as if you're being carried along.
That must have been a joy to work on.
Yeah, it was nice. And it was different from other shows that I've worked on where they're like in their first or second season where people are looking around for, a hatchet to fall on them or a sandbag.
Nervous.
And I'm really nervous and second guessing everything and changing lines and worrying. And is this funny? Should he stand here? I don't know. Should he wear a tie? Maybe he should wear a red jacket. I don't know. No, it's not funny. Who said that? Blah, 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 blah. And getting very worried. Yeah. And then you're just like, you feel like you have 20 people directing you. And but this show and The Big Bang Theory, very simple, very easy, very comfortable, and just nice folks.
That's great.
Yeah.
Then you also had some spots on Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I know you loved, Danny, right?
I love it.
Yeah, and
the
Mad
British
TV.
version, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you were on the British version?
I was on the British version.
See, that's the one I watched. I didn't even know they had an American version, which apparently has run for years.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because I grew up
It's the same
that.
producers.
Right.
And they came over here, and they did an American spinoff. Yeah, I had an improv company that I was part of in New York. In the 80s and 90s. And they were on the prowl for American improvisers. And they came to our theater in New York, and they plucked me and a wonderful performer named Christopher Smith, who's still my good pal, up and said, we want to put you guys in the show. And we didn't know from the show. We didn't know anything about it. It was a British show. Nobody saw it. This is long before cable even, so we didn't have any kind of understanding of what it was. And the kind of improv that they were doing, we sort of poo-pooed. Again, my terrible attitude. I have just a very nonchalant.
That seems to have worked for you a few times.
Yeah, I think the more highbrow I get about things. But Christopher and I, we'd been doing improvised Broadway plays and all these. We'd been really, with our group out there, really trying to, a company called Interplay, had been trying to really stretch the boundaries of improv. And then Whose Line was saying, do a funny country western song and make it rhyme a lot. And we were like, okay, all right, we will dumb down and do this show, and so but we had no idea that, like the episodes that I did maybe 3 episodes, and Christopher and I did. People still watch them. They're still on, and that show had tremendous impact, on people, and led to the American spinoff, which was even more successful.
Well, my wife, you're 25, and she loves that show.
Yeah,
they really stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I see it, and I wish it was not so jokey and kind of crass.
Right.
I saw it again recently. I went to a recent taping. Same producer, same guy I'd worked for 20 odd years ago.
With the new reboot that they've done of it?
Yeah, the new reboot.
Yeah, I watched the American one, the older one with
Drew Carey.
Yeah, Drew Carey.
And who's hosting it now? It's the actress.
Anymore, right?
It's the same actress I was on Friends with, coincidentally.
Oh gosh, I don't remember
one of the
her
cast
name.
of Friends, or
No,
well,
she wasn't.
she was Ross's girlfriend. I can't remember her name right now.
Remember her name.
That's
Look that up. But yeah, she's hosting it now, and she's very good. I don't know. I liked it, but I think again I skew towards the theatrical. I skew towards things that are a little more, I don't know, a little more developed and less from the stand-up comedy. You know, like they're going for the joke. They're going for the jugular, which I totally understand. I totally respect it. It's just not my favorite thing.
I totally got it. So in terms of theater, what do you love about theater the most? What are some of the things of theater that really inspire you?
Oh, well, I'm not doing a lot of theater right now. I have a one-man show that I do, which is very entertaining. It's Impressions. It's called Jimpressions.
Jimpressions. I've seen that.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
And
I loved it.
Yeah.
I laughed the entire time.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It was so great.
It's a lot of fun to do. I figured, if as long as I can get a theater and maybe a musician or a guest star or two, I can do my own stuff and people will have a good time and I can entertain people, and I don't have to wait around for anyone's permission. I can talk about what I want to talk about, do the kind of impressions I want to do.
George W. Bush, of course, big favorite, on account of he was president.
He was the president.
Not just of California, all of them, all 50 states, including Puerto Rico.
So yeah,
that's awesome. I have to ask you about this show, Impress Me.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this because it was actually hard for me to find. There's like 8 episodes of it. You do it with Ross Marquand.
Yeah.
There's some
very
bits,
hard to find.
But there's a bit, Jim, that I think is pure comic gold. It's not just, and your impression is amazing, but your comedy is incredible. It's that scene where you're reaming that guy out over Gladiator, which is one of my favorite films. Oh my! I love that scene. I shared it with a bunch of people. I've watched it several times. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it.
And people need to find this show.
Well, it's gonna be on a
Sugar.
It was on Pop TV, which was I guess still a channel.
You have to sign up for it or something.
Yeah, it's hard to find. So it's not on there anymore. They've had the deal for a couple of years, and now we're on the cusp. I wish I could announce it tonight, but we're on the cusp of it being actually viewable on a well-known platform.
I really hope so. It's like a hidden gem.
Yeah, thank you.
I've seen only a few clips of you and Ross. Obviously, I know Ross Marquand and you do from The Walking Dead.
Big Walking Dead fan.
Huge fan. But then I saw him doing a bunch of clips as impressionists.
Well, Ross and I worked together on a couple of little projects. One student project, a web series, and I kept running into him.
Right.
And we got hired, and I'm like, there you are again. We met on another thing, and I just from kind of talking to him and stuff, we shared this interest in accents and you do impressions. Gee, that's really good, and we even got together and met and said we should think of something to do, and we had lunch, and neither of us are writers, and so we didn't really come up with anything. But then there was another confluence where I got approached by a guy named Ben Shelton, who had a series called The Flip Side, web series on Soul Pancake, and I looked at some of his older flip sides to see if I wanted to be part of this, and one of them had Ross in it, and it's a great series. So I said, yeah, sure, and we worked together. And then I said to Ben, I said, you work with Ross Marquand, maybe there's something the three of us could do together. We got together and had breakfast, and he listened to we had these little ideas that were kind of sketchy ideas about, well, maybe, I don't know, I can't remember what they were, but after listening to what we do for a living as impressionists, doing sound-alike stuff, doing audiobooks, doing voiceovers and animation, and the way that casting people treat us, and I don't know, there were particular things. He said, this is what the story is. It's about two guys that are living the lives that you have, and the ups and downs of making a living and so forth. And so he wrote this wonderful web series that then became a TV series called Impress Me. Now, Pops had it. And they aired it once, the full season, and then they sat on it for, I don't know, year and a half, couple years. in this great age of being able to find anything you want on television, online, you can't find it anywhere.
Just clips.
Just clips.
Yeah, which I've seen them all many times.
Oh, that's nice. Well, you won't wait till you see the show.
I'm telling you, the
Can't
networks
wait.
need to pick up the ball because
Yeah.
just the clips are incredible.
Oh, thank you. I think you'll like it a lot. It's a story, and we had actually quite a few people that went on to do big things. Ross, of course, went on to The Walking Dead. Dana De Lorenzo, who is on Ash versus Evil Dead. So we had two people go on to the biggest zombie shows
I've seen some of that
on TV. And we had Melissa Villasenor was on a show or two, and she went on to Saturday Night Live. Piotr Michael, who I brought onto the show, someone I knew, an impressionist. He's just brilliant. And he was on the new Mad TV for that season. I don't know if it's back or not. And you know, just a lot of really great working impressionists.
That's great.
It was super fun. So I can't wait for you to see the whole thing. And
I can't wait. I want to put you on the spot, but do you remember the quote from Gladiator? From Maximus?
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Captain of the Felix Legions.
something like that.
Should see Tony's face.
I
Like a kid.
That was good enough. I'll take it.
Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of the North.
I will have my vengeance.
I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
And then there's two guys in that scene from Breaking Bad too. There's J.B. Blanc.
That's right.
And Matt Jones, who plays.
And it's Jim, like literally Ross is like holding him back. And he's like, "No, you do it like this. My daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, could do a better job than that." It's not again.
Well, it's based on a truth thing that happens with
comedy.
impressionists, is where we you know, a lot of us do the same voices, and you know, you hear somebody making a big fuss over somebody who does I actually do that impression better, but that thing happens quite a lot, and you just have to kind of grin and bear it. And we thought, well, what if you didn't grin and bear it? What if you're such an asshole that you're going to really make the other guy really wrong for it? So
I loved it, and after I watched those clips, that's when I searched for that show. So anyway, it was started as being called the Impression Guys, and they changed it to
Impress Me. Yeah.
So look out for that, people. Listeners, look out for that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exciting.
All right, and then Danny and we followed you on American's Got Talent as well.
Right.
You were on one of the
Such
seasons.
a good performance.
How was
Thank
that
you.
like? That was great performance.
Interesting experience.
Again,
Boy.
this podcast is yours.
Yeah,
Unfiltered.
good. Well, it just goes to everybody. I got approached and I said, "Really? Why would I go on that show?" And they said, "Well, a lot of people do it. Stand-ups, established people to promote themselves." And I went, okay, I understand then if it's about promotion, because it seemed to me it was about amateurs.
Right.
But it really isn't. It's about television.
Right.
And
Viewership.
viewership, exactly. And I had a pretty easy time of it because I didn't have to wait in a lot of long lines, and I didn't have to prove myself. I was able to submit videos, and that made it a lot easier. And what I really wanted to do, I didn't care about winning because I don't like Las Vegas. I didn't want a room in Las Vegas. And the $1 million, I found out, is paid out over an extremely long period of time.
Right, yeah.
40 years.
I've heard that. Oh, my God, really?
40 years.
That's
So it's
crazy.
$25,000 a year.
But it's all for entertainment, as you said.
it's all for entertainment. So they're trying to construct a good show.
And you did that very well.
Well, thank you.
Your stage presence was really, you owned that stage. That's what impressed me the most.
Oh.
A lot of people go out there, they try to be interesting, but you were just interesting.
Wow.
Your stage presence, and you were just fantastic.
And we
Well,
were like,
thank you.
there's Jim Meskimen again.
It's again. I remember this moment being backstage and really having to kind of go to sell myself on, okay, you're the next act. So you ready to do this? Is this what you want to do? You know, because it's like it takes full commitment.
Sure.
And you can't be kind of waffling. And but it was very you talk about going out of your comfort zone. It's like, wow, this is really my comfort zone is nowhere near here.
It's funny. I've got to say, Jim, I almost find it humbling because you're someone who I think personally, from an exterior standpoint, you're hugely successful. You've been doing this for so long, but it's quite humbling to see that you're always kind of, you do kind of criticize yourself and you're always wanting to do better. And
well, I got to clear it with I got to be right about it, and in that case, it was like, it's a little like there is no room for any hesitation. We had a certain amount of time. It's a live television broadcast. And in the room at the Radio City Music Hall, there were 6,000 people.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, This doesn't happen to me very often.
It's a big audience.
That's the biggest audience, live audience.
And they loved you. You got a standing ovation.
Yeah, they loved it. So that was great.
Yeah,
and
we loved it.
It took a lot of concentration. So anyway, but so that was good. It was a big win. And then, when I was dismissed.
Dismissed. That word.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, there was this gag I had that I didn't do, that I think for the rest of my life I'll be sorry that I didn't do.
What was the gag?
Well, I noticed, my daughter and I and my wife, we would watch America's Got Talent and go, okay, now this is when they have everybody up, and now this is when they make them really stew while they're waiting, to be, are you going to be win or are you going to be let go? And I was like, I want to put a stopwatch on this because it seems like a really long time that they're up there and the music is playing, and now we will know in a few minutes who will be the one going on to whatever. And I put a stopwatch on. I was like, it's 30 freaking seconds, half a minute. I'm like, holy crap!
Wow,
that's a long time to just let us sit there and sweat. And I was sort of like, I resented it. And I'm like, you know what I ought to do? I think what I'll do is when it's me and I'm up there, I'm going to take out some knitting. And I'm going to knit during that time.
That would have been
in front of everybody. And I had that in my mind to do. And then I got wrapped up in, on the day, that day, I'm like, I don't actually know how to knit.
So that probably wouldn't have worked.
I'd have to fake that for 30 minutes. It's 30 seconds. But I wish I'd done it anyway because I think it would have been hilarious. And people go, you're the guy that knit. You were knitting.
Well, you did great. And millions of people got to see you. So that's great.
Thank you.
Tell me about your audiobooks, because you've done a ton of audiobooks. And I've listened to several of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've done a ton. And I got introduced to it because I was lucky enough to direct this series of audiobooks by my friends at Galaxy Audio. They own and control the fiction library of L. Ron Hubbard, who wrote extensively in the 30s and 40s and
Mm.
50s. And he did everything, westerns and mystery and everything, and beautifully. By the way, he did some incredible stories.
Final Blackout is one of my favorite books of all time. By L. Ron Hubbard.
Final Blackout is tremendous. That's a long novel, and then he did tons of little pulp things that were shorter. He did ones that were like 8 pages long. He did things that were like hundreds of pages long, and he wrote all his life. And so I got the opportunity to direct basically almost all of his.
That's awesome. I didn't know
fiction.
You directed them.
Yeah, directed them, and I performed in them as well. We did the multicast. We did them like an old radio show, but with new sound effects and new mixing techniques and music. And we got more and more ambitious as the projects got bigger and bigger.
I went to one of those readings as well.
Oh, did you? The live readings?
I went to several. That was my introduction of you in the mid-'90s.
Yeah, I've been involved with them for a really long time.
It was fascinating.
I like that area of performance very much. I like the vocal area. I like how you can sort of paint a picture with your mind and with the voice and sort of create a mood and all that stuff, and characters and weird characters.
You play different characters.
You play all sorts of different ones. You change it up all the time and sound like 2 or 3 other people. Yeah, I just dig it, and people that love old radio and love that kind of performing. Anyway, I found and assembled a company of people that all love to do that. And we did just tons of stories together. And, we've won audio awards and all kinds of awards for them because they're just damn good. And we really took a lot of care with them. And to direct them taught me a lot. And I found that I was confident in that area, at least in the vocal realm, to direct. I mean, I'm not up to that in the entirety for a film or a television show.
It's a lot of work.
I don't have the chops for that. I don't have the experience. But vocally... I can handle it. I can help actors paint a picture with their voices and create performances and create something that, and it turns out to be a lovely art form that people fill in with their mind. And so, we actually completed them all. We have recorded all of L. Ron Hubbard's published fiction, and it's not all released. It probably won't all be released for years and years. But Battlefield Earth was released. Maybe it's 2 years ago now, and it's was a bestseller and won awards, and it's a beautiful production and still sells a lot, and we've got more rolling out every year from now on.
That's a huge achievement in itself, I think.
Yeah, well, 47 and a half hours of finished audio is a lot for people to listen to, and a great story with music and sound effects and great performances.
You do a lot of stuff, Jim.
I do a lot of stuff.
All right, so look, I have to ask you about your impressions. Obviously you do so many different things, but your impressions are, I think you are like the best impressionist in the world, if not the best.
Well, and that's why I'm a fan of yours.
But seriously,
thank you.
Tell me who you think is better than you.
Well, I know many great impressionists. So
better though?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard for me
to. It's
hard for me to. I don't like to evaluate that way. But I can. There are people many impressionists that I admire, and it's a big art form these days. And there are lots of people you discover them on YouTube, and you go, wow, that's really great. Or this guy does this voice terrific. Frank Caliendo is terrific. Ross Marquand, one of the reasons why we became friends, because he's terrific. Piotr Michael,
and Jim Meskimen.
And
how many can you do?
I don't know. It fluctuates like the market. For various reasons, I'm always adding on. My agents are sending me stuff every day. Like today, I got 2 or 3 voices. Can you do this? Can you do this voice? We're trying to match this. So there are an infinite amount of voices out there, almost, because there's everybody that's ever existed and people in show business.
So you can do a lot. That's really the answer.
Well, I can do a lot, and I have a particular timbre. I have a particular range that I fit into. So. Like I'm not great at very, very deep voices or very, very high voices. I can't do some of these. A lot of the stars today are in their 20s. It's very hard for me to hit that, because that's a very particular, crisp, wonderful, youthful sound that is always going to be done easier by a person. And I used to do them a long time ago, but I can't do them anymore. And then there's certain people whose imitations you don't want to do anymore.
Right, I agree.
Like recently, I worked on a film with Kevin Spacey this year, and Kevin Spacey was a big part of my routine.
He was one of my favorite actors. It's such a drag.
It's a big disappointment.
I agree.
And before that, Bill Cosby people were always imitating Bill Cosby.
I was going to say.
Robin Williams was for different reasons. Robin Williams became kind of, now it's sort of okay to do Robin Williams.
You can do
But
Robin
at first, well, yes, I can, and I have. But for a while there, it meant something completely different when you suddenly
God bless him.
Brought out your Robin Williams impression. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, just close your eyes and just
literally, it makes me want to close my eyes and just.
Well, it's radio, so it's doing it all for you.
But that's true.
Mork and Mindy.
When I went to your show, one of the things I have to just say that blew me away. I'm originally German, and I really don't like when people attempt to do German accents and they sound either way overdo it or they way underdo it. And you did like a German professor at the Jimpressions, and I loved it.
Wow.
It was spot on.
Can you do it? Do you remember it?
I don't remember it, but for me, I like Christoph Waltz very much, who is a German. I believe is a German. I'm not entirely certain where he's from. Austrian? Well, that's completely different. He's more like Arnold Schwarzenegger then, I suppose. But
Austrian.
But also this is a sort of German voice that you hear quite often. I've actually had to do it for commercials and other things, so for me it's I enjoy.
What commercial is that? That's right. I remember seeing you.
Sprint. I did
That's
for
right.
Sprint.
Yeah, there's a director that always hires me to play German. So God bless him.
So good. So
Randy
happy.
Krallman, if you're out there, let's work together again.
So I want to ask you then, how? This is a stupid question, I guess not. But how do you actually learn or formulate doing these impressions? Like,
I'm just interested. There's things you know how to do very well and automatically. Right. I have always been interested in the voice, and I like to entertain. So I learned from my mother again that you could imitate people. That's she would imitate voices and do characters and stuff.
Really
and so I observed that, and I realized, well, that's fun. And when you know something's fun, then you kind of like to do it in your spare time. And I like to observe people and see how they are, and to kind of be them, which is what acting is. It's being another person, right? So. And then I used to record myself, and once you can make people laugh. I have practice. I do. Like if I'm at home and nobody's around, and I'll suddenly just sort of talk like this and sort of figure out, what am I doing? I have no idea. I'm really hungry right now. There's absolutely nothing in the house. Thank you. I practice it so that I'm
British, and I don't even sound British to my family anymore.
No, I know.
I've been here for nearly 20 years.
Oh yeah, that's what's happened. Where's your family from?
From England.
Yeah, but where in England?
Like Sussex.
Okay, Sussex. Okay.
Born and bred.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up. So didn't you spend some time in England recently,
actually? Yeah, I was there over the summer. We were doing the St. Hill Artist Festival. So
That's
I was
right.
there.
They do a whole arts festival.
We were teaching, my wife and I were teaching theater and improv. She has a theater school, the Acting Center. So we were invited to come over and and train people on this particular kind of acting technique. And then we used the opportunity once we were over there to go to Edinburgh, which I'd never been to before.
My favorite city.
Yeah, it was great.
Prince's Street. Edinburgh is one of my favorite places. You love it?
Loved it.
We
had great weather. Had no haggis. Every time someone said, "Have you had haggis yet?" I said, "Yeah, I just had it earlier." So,
shortbread?
Yeah, shortbread, of course.
Okay,
shortbread.
That's delicious.
A wee dram. We had a few things. It was lovely, but mostly just walking around, looking at all the buildings and taking pictures and admiring it. And I really liked the. We were very lucky because, I don't know. People said you should go to Edinburgh with your show, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. I mean, but I don't know what it's like. You know, I needed to kind of
right.
And I had an image of what it was like. Totally threw it out. Yeah, because it's so massive.
Yeah,
it
really
is thousands and thousands of shows, and so I'm glad that we went because I don't know if I went there with my show, I'd love to do it, but now I'm a little more prepared.
Right.
Because we were like, well, what shows are we going to see? My wife would say, well, what shows will we see? I was like, I really don't know. They give you a schedule that is like the Rhode Island phone book. It's like there's so much in there. You're like, and where is this place? So we would half the time go, all right, let's see this. Head on down the street, look for the sign, not find it. We're running out of time. Someone would say, here, and hand us a flyer and say, I'm performing in 5 minutes. You are? Okay, right. We'll go and see your show. And it would be great. And it would be an amazing show that we never would have picked out, and had no production value whatsoever, but it was like so much fun.
Yeah.
And it was very inspiring. We saw several shows that way that were like, here, I'm doing a show, or my group is doing a show. Totally spontaneous.
I think you'd do great there.
Yeah, I think it would be fun.
They do a yearly comedy festival where they have so many.
Edinburgh?
Yeah, a yearly comedy festival. That's actually, I randomly went up there when it was going, and I didn't know. And there were just, the streets were blocked off. There were shows everywhere. And
this is separate from the Fringe Festival.
And I saw this amazing improv group called The Noise Next Door, which is what got me.
Next Door.
Yeah, they got me really into watching impressionists and improv and all of that. So you'd do amazing there.
Thank you.
Really cool.
Well, I had a great time. It was really life-changing.
How are we doing on time, Jim?
We're doing fine. It's 6:30 almost.
Okay, good. A little bit more time with you. Have so many questions and so little time to do it. And well, look, I am Tony the Movie Guy, so I did want to ask you.
Movies,
Yeah, I just want to ask you, like, what are some of your favorite films, directors, or movies that inspire you of any genre? I'd love to hear.
Oh, okay. Well, my favorite movie is, I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite movie, as everyone knows. But among my favorites are, they're pretty much all black and white. I love To Kill a Mockingbird. It's the first movie I remember seeing.
Fantastic.
And it still is moving as hell. It's so great. Scout. Just a great, great film. And I love The Third Man is a movie that I love, which Orson Welles is in, and I think it's directed by Carol Reed. That's got a lot going for it. I'll always watch that if that's on. A movie I was in I admire very much is Apollo 13. That's another one where I saw it recently. We watched it at the Acting Center, and it was like, wow, this is a really good film.
Stands the test of time.
Absolutely.
It's a modern classic. I absolutely consider it a modern classic.
Yeah, and that was a fun experience too. I really enjoyed it. I worked on the film for a month. I'm part of Mission Control, and I learned a lot, and it was a big movie, and it was really, really cool to be part of it.
That's awesome.
The one I'm most proud of, I think.
Any other more modern films that you've really enjoyed? No, that's okay. I love a lot of the golden oldies.
I'm just coming to mind is Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris. Was it
one of my favorites?
Oh, we love that movie. Honestly, I've only seen maybe 5 or 6 Woody Allen movies, and that film, to me, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
For me, it's the culmination of so much in his career, and it's like all the best of Woody Allen jammed into one movie, even excluding his persona, which is represented by Owen Wilson.
Woody Allen?
Of course, but I mean, the exciting thing about the film is that nowhere do you see Woody Allen at all, except a much younger version.
Which drives me crazy about him. I've said that before. The way how jittery he is.
That's his persona. He's actually not that way. He's actually a very calm and contemplative person, but he exaggerates it for the motion pictures. And I like we just watched again the Hudsucker Proxy, which is a Coen Brothers film. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've heard
lately.
of it. I haven't seen it.
Well, that's another film like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is I just smile throughout. I just smile
love that movie.
throughout the whole movie. And there's so much to admire about it. And on the strength of that, seeing that movie a couple weeks ago, which I don't know, I think Tamara had assigned it to her students to watch or something, which is why we watched it again. I forgot how much I liked it. And then I was like, oh yeah, the Coen brothers are just amazing. And so we went, when my wife and I wanted to go to the movies last week, I said, well, let's go see Suburbicon, because I think that's a Coen brothers
George Clooney
script, and George Clooney, and I've worked with George Clooney, and I like him. I like his films, and let's go see that. And we were so disappointed.
Yeah,
it just doesn't. Well. It just doesn't. It's not. The tone changes too much, and there's just flawed. It's just flawed. Yeah, there's good things in it, but it just doesn't stick together.
All the time, I guess.
Yeah, but Hudsucker Proxy, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I think, which George Clooney is in.
I'll have to check out that first one.
Hudsucker Proxy. Yeah, Tim Robbins stars in it. Jennifer Jason Leigh, and marvelous. Paul Newman.
Fantastic.
And I worked with Paul Newman once. I worked with Tim Robbins once. I worked with Charlie Durning, who's in that movie. So, but it's a delicious film in the style, a very honest duplication, faithful duplication of movies from 1930s, 1940s in America, but with just a little bit of the humor of looking back on that period and exaggerating it slightly, and it's freaking brilliant.
That's fantastic. Cool. That's awesome. Well, I think we're winding down, right? So,
sure.
Did you have well, look, since it's our second year.
Did I do enough impressions for you? I don't feel like I did.
I really want
to. Hold on. What I was going to ask is, you love Colin Firth, right? He does Colin Firth.
Yes. Well,
she loves
quite a
Colin
big
Firth.
difference, unfortunately, between me and Colin Firth. But
closing my eyes.
Closing her eyes. Well, good. That will help the illusion. And what's marvelous about Colin Firth to me is that he is so charming and so hesitant.
We're all closing our eyes.
Delightful voice.
Robert De Niro, of course, I've also done many times, with this and that. And he's just, back, it wasn't too long ago, nobody did this impression. Now it's very common, so big deal.
We also do Harvey Keitel. Still, nobody does Harvey
Mean
Keitel.
Streets.
Mean Streets, sure.
Reservoir
Dogs, very important.
See, I'm old school. Al Pacino, all those.
Al Pacino, wow. Al Pacino, exactly, yeah. He's terrific as well.
What I do is I like to imagine conversations with these people. So I do a podcast where I actually have a conversation with celebrities, one celebrity or at a time, or sometimes two or three at a time. You can find that on my YouTube channel, which is very
and what's it called?
It's called Jim Meskimen.
Awesome.
Yeah, on my name on YouTube and you'll find I've got the Jim Meskimen Live Celebrity Podcast. This last week I interviewed Buster Keaton, famous sound film star Buster Keaton, about the Twitter trending thing, and I've interviewed lots of people. It's fun for me. I can hear their voices in my head, and so I have a conversation. I script it, I record it, and I interact with them.
Jack Nicholson,
absolutely. I called Jack Nicholson called me on my birthday one time in my show, and it was very moving.
So good.
So good.
Sean Connery, sure, as well. He's very sophisticated and marvelous. Is he still alive, by the way?
Yes, he is.
God bless him. God bless him.
There was a rare sighting of him on TV recently.
That's right. Well,
like polo.
Very, very handsome, bald man. I admire him a lot.
All right, well, I think we're wrapping up. Any more you guys want? The girls are loving this.
That was brilliant.
I know,
so
I just can't think of any. I'm
Christopher Walken.
Of course. I just recently recorded a story that I wrote called Tony the Easter Pumpkin for Halloween, which I read as Christopher Walken. And it's, the most difficult thing about doing a Christopher Walken impression is stopping doing a Christopher Walken impression, because it sticks with you like gum on your shoe.
Which one are your favorites? Like, do you have any personal favorites?
I like them all. I like people ask that a lot. That's a very common question, and I don't know how to answer it, except that I like to be able to change my voice to suit what I would have to say.
Right.
So one of the frustrating things about being a child was that they always wanted you to just be yourself.
Right.
And I always felt like, I don't know why, but this just hurts. I can't wait to be able to be whoever I want to be.
Well, that's awesome. Look, I love your impressions, but I do want to say, I mean, you're extremely talented across the board.
Thank you.
I mean, you really are, and you're also just such a great guy. It's such a pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
We're shaking hands
across the podcast.
You can't see it, but I just shook his hand. He's got a firm, manly grip, slightly moist, but very powerful.
Yeah, well, we're in a small room. Yeah. So is there, do you want to tell people where they can find you, Jim?
Yeah, find me on YouTube. That's the best way. I also, www.jimmeskimen.com. That's my website. But my YouTube channel, I put stuff up multiple times a week, all kinds of creative things. So you can find a lot to entertain you, including my big hit, Shakespeare and Celebrity Voices, which is still going strong. And that's probably the easiest way to find me. My wife's acting school is the Acting Center. That's www.theactingcenterla.com. That's the best acting school in the world.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's basically an acting school where you drill and practice acting technique without being criticized or evaluated for it.
Sounds like a
and
dream.
It's the only school of its kind, because every other school, to some degree, or greater degree or lesser degree, has someone telling you why what you just did was wrong or not quite right or almost there, or gee, I wish you'd done this. And it's actually the wrong way to teach acting. After many years of experiencing all kinds of different instruction, I'm very, very set in my ways on that. Anyway, Tamara started this school. It's a great school. We've had Academy Award winners. We've had beginners, all kinds of people. Working actors go there. And they work. They work the whole time. There's not a lot of blah, blah, blah about what you just did or what would have been better or next time what you ought to do. It's like just work, and drill.
That's fantastic, man.
It's in Sherman Oaks, California. And people come from as far away as South Africa and New Zealand and Australia to study there. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and we'll absolutely promote it at the end of the podcast as well. We'll let everyone know where they can
please
find
do.
it.
Yeah, it's a great place. Very friendly. And I do my show there, too. So
awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have. But it's been such a pleasure, Jim.
That was very kind and generous. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome back anytime on the show.
Good. Tomorrow, same time tomorrow, then.
I love it. Sorry, one last impression before you go, because we can't have enough. Eyes closed. Imagine it.
Who is it?
Anyone you want.
Oh, anyone I want.
Your favorite.
Okay.
He doesn't like that question.
Let's see. I'm like you.
Do you do any women? Do you? I mean, I know that's
I do Ariana Huffington, but she's not well known probably to your audience. But she's of Greek extraction and has a beautiful accent.
Meryl Streep?
No. Meryl Streep, yeah. I'm doing Meryl Streep right now, doing me. It is very tricky.
That's awesome. Is there any others you can think of?
I could just end with Morgan Freeman and say that it's been a great pleasure. And I wish you a lot of luck, and I hope your audience has a wonderful, wonderful day filled with joy and good fortune.
We love you, Jim. One last one. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine, fine. So, Michael Caine has got a certain rhythm, doesn't he? And he's got now, at this point in his life and his career, a certain gravitas. And we all should be as charming and as well-mannered and well-bred as Michael Caine.
Oh, can we keep you forever?
Seriously, so entertaining.
All right, we're going to wrap up. Jim, thank you so much.
You bet.
It was such a pleasure.
Open your eyes. Open your eyes.
Thank you so much for listening to another new episode of Tony the Movie Guy, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to that podcast as much as we did recording it. Jim, you are such a pleasure, and it was so fun having you. Just a reminder, you can follow him on Twitter at Jim Ross Meskimen. You can find him on YouTube. He has a whole YouTube channel with all these great things that you just need to watch all of, and that is at Jim Meskimen. And also, you can find him and his wife's acting school at theactingcenterla.com. And just a reminder, you can also find us on all of our social media at Tony the Movie Guy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also email us at tonythemovieguypodcast@gmail.com. And my final and weekly reminder to please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. It's incredibly helpful for us. We do want to get out there. We want more people to listen to us. And that is one way to really ensure that happens so we can keep on making more podcasts. And share with your friends. Don't forget, if you enjoy listening to Jim this week, please share this episode with your friends. And I'm sure they'll be just as entertained as you are and we were recording it. All right, everybody. Have a good week. See you next time.